Hello and welcome to my channel AB Make It Artwork, where we do what we do to make that artwork for you. And if you're new to my channel, maybe hit that subscribe button, join the AB Creative Crew. We do sketchy art things. As you're probably aware of, I'm doing Huevember. I'm following a prompt list that my friend made. That prompt list is called Huevember, where each day I take just one of the creatures on this list and I draw it. I have all my hues planned out with the prompts. Today I'll probably just give a quick description of what creatures I'm doing, and they may overlap on the footage because Procreate was kind of being glitchy, and it dropped some of the footage, so some of the recordings are a little slower than I'd like them to be. As you can see, I am working on the Mothman. If you haven't heard of this cryptid before, I think it is a cryptid that originated in Virginia, West Virginia area. And it was only seen in that area for a certain amount of time. I think it was through the 50s to the 60s, or maybe it was late 40s to late 50s that it was seen, early 60s, 1960s. And this creature is described as a moth-human hybrid that is either an alien, or sometimes it's considered to be a Native American deity that predicts calamities. And there was a movie based on this creature, but I went with Mothman hybrid, sort of memed it by having it on a lamp because moths love lamps. Funny thing, my husband is terrified of moths. That is his fear. They're cringy from afar. If they get too close, he freaks out. The next prompt is Chupacabra, and I had one friend who told me in the past that the Chupacabra is considered to be a sort of Mexican, Puerto Rico, Bigfoot of sort. By the way, it's raining outside, so if you hear some lovely ASMR tapping on the window, it's because it's raining. I actually like the rain. Anyways. Ooh, sorry for that. The Chupacabra, its name translates to goat sucker, and it's described in two very specific ways as a reptilian man hybrid, so sort of like a Middle American lizard man that happens to hunt goats with raised spines on its back and scales, or a sort of hairless dog creature with protruding spines that has an elongated tongue that it uses to actually bite the goats. I don't know, usual signs that it's the Chupacabra is that the goat will have 3 puncture marks on the neck. And when it came to the piece for the Chupacabra, I wanted to sort of make it look like a lost footage situation, because I thought that was kind of interesting to add all these grains and textures near the end of it. Though admittedly, I would have probably changed a couple things with this piece, maybe adding more textures on the skin. But it was really fun. I went for a combination of the ideals that it's a large, hairless, emaciated dog creature, but also with some lizard-like aspects of giant claws. And I'm sort of aware of that one trait where it has a giant long tongue with the teeth in it that it uses to suck blood out of goats. And I think the Chupacabra has been cited from as low as Chile, as far south as Chile, but as far north as Maine, supposedly are Chupacabra sightings. This is the third piece. I had changed this day out for the day. This is God/Pantheon for this prompt, and I did not want to draw an entire family of gods. Lord knows that in and of itself would take a month to draw that many gods and goddesses. Because if you don't know, a pantheon is the entire group, the entire collection of any one particular area of religious practices, deities. So if you want to draw a whole pantheon, you would have to maybe do layers of bust to make it as easy as possible. So I opted to do a god, And this was the day that I had changed with fertility goddess. I had my husband tell me what god I should go for, and he suggested a couple of them. I didn't want to tell him what the color was because I knew if I told him that it was a reddish hue, a red sort of starting to lean into the purple hues, that he would probably go with Aries. And I was like, Aries is kind of obvious with a red color. I want something different. So my husband had suggested Prometheus. And at first I was like, I'm not sure if he's a god. I thought he was just a hero in Greek lore. And it turns out that in like Greek Roman lore, Prometheus is a titan, which is a deity level of sorts. They're like the early gods before the gods were a thing. And Prometheus was considered a trickster titan, a little devious prankster god. And his name means forethought, which means that sort of by association that he had a tendency to think things through. He's very intelligent. He was considered a god of creation, crafting, adaptability, but he's also considered to be one of many gods associated with fire. In this instance, it's one of those lores of being the fire bringer. So Prometheus at first had gifted, in some tales, he had at first gifted the humans with fire because he forgot to give them a gift because he gave all the other animals gifts, and he's like, shoot, I gave everything else feathers, fur, the ability to breathe underwater, scales, cool stuff, and I didn't give the people anything. Here, have some fire. Learn to build it with it. There you go. And Zeus decided to punish the humans because of some injustice. Well, he probably actually punished the humans because Prometheus tricked the god Zeus into taking only the fat and the bones of his offerings, and everyone else got the meat. Well, the people got the meat, and Zeus was really mad about that, so he took away fire, and Prometheus stole the fire back and brought it back to the people, and Zeus was really mad about that because Zeus has no chill. Zeus has no chill at all. And Zeus decided, not cool. I took it away from them for a reason. It was my reason. You shouldn't give it back and steal from me. You're now going to be like chained up to a cliff, and an eagle is going to eat out your liver every day. Because gods have an ability to grow back their organs. So Prometheus was chained to a cliff in which every day a golden eagle, which is the familiar of Zeus, one of many, would come to peck out his liver every day, and that was his punishment. And in some Roman folklore, it is then said that Zeus sends Heracles to rescue Prometheus from his punishment, because he's like, okay, I've been doing this long enough. I'm kind of being a huge dick about it. Go save him, son. Like, whatever. Because I didn't read the exact story. I just got a really small line in my research in which that was a thing. Where Heracles saves Prometheus from the cliff, and that's what I painted. That's what I did in Procreate. This is the fourth piece. I'm going to be showing 5 different pieces, I think, in this video. This is Vampire. You probably know about vampires. I went with the more Eurocentric, romantic, medieval idea of vampires in appearance. I wanted to make a sort of portrait of a baroness and give it that rustic old feeling of like an ancient oil painting, which I've been having a lot of fun with this one particular brush. It's in the painting section, or maybe it was in the artistic section, I forget, but I've been playing with the paintbrushes in the painting and artistic section of Procreate a lot more, especially for this piece and a couple other pieces. And I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I think had I sketched out the face or used a reference for the face, it would have looked a little better, but again, I'm pretty happy with how this came out once I started to rework it. And I could have gone with a lot of different ideals of vampires because there's many different cultures of which have a vampire-like story or ideal of what vampires are. In some cultures, vampires are more like zombies, and in other cultures, okay, yeah, vampires are technically zombies with more sentience, and they're sent from the devil. or they're sent from like negative thoughts and emotions and grudges. For instance, I think it's in different parts of Asia, a vampire is more like a zombie that rises back from a grudge, and if you like didn't properly bury a family member, they could come back as a vampire. And I forget what exactly they're called, but I remember that one of the weird traits about these kind of vampires is that when they first come out of their graves, out of these grudges of being improperly buried, their main way of getting from place to place is by hopping. And I think it's the funniest thing. Like, I don't know how seriously I can take a vampire or a zombie that has to bounce to me like a bunny in order to, like, drain me of my life essence. But I imagine it's quite terrifying because they have superhuman strength in this particular version of the vampire. And there's like a lot of different scary versions of vampires. Like in Japan, there's the Kappa. I think that's a prompt on another day, or maybe it wasn't. But they're hecka mean, and sometimes they're considered to be vampires. In some European folklore, it's believed that vampires would bite your feet. There's an old story, actually, a folk story, in which it was believed that vampires bit your feet because the sole of the feet is where your soul would reside, which is why it's kind of called the soul when you're referring to the bottom of the foot. And there's a story of these twin brothers who go hiking up a mountain where there's a vampire known to hide in the cave up on this mountain. And so they devise that they're going to sleep with their feet under each other's head and their blankets tightly wrapped around them so that, like, if the vampire comes out, they won't see it. And so they go to sleep for the night, they tuck their feet under each other's heads, and it's so funny because the vampire does come upon these twin brothers who are just climbing the mountain, and he's just so weirded out. He's just looking at this thing in a sleeping bag that has two heads, and he keeps going back from like one end to the other and one end to the other, and he's just freaking out, and he's so terrified of this creature that has no feet and two heads. And it's like the funniest kind of story ever about vampires. Okay, so I think this is the last piece for today. I hope you're enjoying these lore stories that I have. I could talk about vampires like all day, because I had a book entirely on vampires and werewolves and ghosts and ghouls, and that was my shit when I was a kid. Just scary ghost stuff. It's my shit now. I love scary things. I love monsters. But here we have a dragon. Obviously, I was going to try to do like a really complicated pose, but I was just not getting it. And I was like, I give up. I'm just going to do it in profile. I'm just going to do profile dragon. And this is loosely based on the idea of the iconic Asian dragons, the Asian lungs, which is like a hybrid. Like, if you've ever seen videos about Chinese mythical creatures, it's usually a hybrid combination of dog, dragon, lion, deer, elk, and some bit of forest foliage. Oh, by the way, if you want to find me on any of my other social media, I have a DeviantArt, I have an Instagram, I have a Tumblr, a Twitter, and a Pinterest that I'm trying to use more for my references. Which I update frequently on my Instagram, and I'm trying to engage more on my story. Come hang out with us. I put lore bits in the descriptions of all my photos, by the way. Anyways, the Asian lung is a very kind, gentle dragon, but it also depends on the temperament and the element that dragon is associated with. So every dragon's characteristics is defined by what element you are drawing that dragon with. So there are some Asian lungs that have thunder or lightning elements, and they can be more aggressive than, say, a rain dragon, which is good fortune and luck and love. And I always think that's interesting, and I loved drawing them when I was a kid. I hope that you've been enjoying this video and my rambly rants and whatnot. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, and as always, make sure to do what you do to make that artwork for you. Lots of love to all you wonderful people. Bye.